Hey and welcome back to my YouTube channel. I'm Jazz, I'm a British Olympic long jumper if you haven't been here before, and if you have, welcome back. Today I'm just gonna do a sit down chat and I'm gonna cover a topic that I get asked about a lot. Every time I put out the questions feature on Instagram, I get asked, how do you deal with failure? So I thought I'd make a quick video explaining some of the times that I have failed in my athletics career and how I dealt with it. There's so many different pieces of advice that you can get for this because there's so many different kinds of failure and there's so many different reasons that you might have failed. Failure is something that really we should be embracing a lot more, because if we fail, it just means we figured out one way and not to do it. And sometimes it's because of things in your control and sometimes it's not. But you need to be able to recognize the difference between those things and figure out an appropriate response. I'm gonna try and focus on bigger kind of failures, things that really can affect you for a long time if you don't deal with them, and find a way to move on. So I'm gonna get started. The first failure I want to talk about in my athletics career is from 2015, when I did not get selected to compete at the World Championships. I was having probably the best season of my life so far at that point. I just won silver at the European Under-23 champs. I'd jumped a personal best there in the final. I'd jumped the qualifying standard for the world champs, and then on the day before selection, I'd competed really well. I'd come second at a Diamond League meet, and I was so hopeful. I really thought I was gonna get picked. There was one spot left, 2 spots were already full, and there was 1 spot left, and I didn't get it. And that hit me so hard. I was so gutted, partly because I'd convinced myself that I was gonna be picked, and in my own head I'd already kind of accepted that I was going to the World Champs. It would have been my first World Championships, but it didn't happen. The selectors didn't think I was the best candidate to be on that team, and so I didn't get picked. And you have a few options here, and I think this is one of those that was largely out of my control. I think that year I had done my absolute best. I hadn't put myself in a position to be in the top 2 at trials, and so I couldn't guarantee myself a spot. But I was what, 21? Yeah, I was 21. I'd improved. I had just jumped a personal best. It was the best that I could do, and that just wasn't good enough. And so I think in a situation like that, where you really have given everything you can, I'd worked so hard that year. I'd put everything in that I could. I was studying at the same time. I was really doing my best. There's nothing more that I could have done there. And I think when you have a failure that you really have put all your best effort into, you've got to just remove yourself from it and go, okay, this just didn't work out this time, because that can happen. You can give absolutely everything you've got and it can still not work out. And that's just the way it is. And so how I dealt with that one is I completely removed myself from the situation. I went camping with no phone, no internet access, and so while the championship was on, I was away. I camped, I had a really nice time, and I just managed to forget about it all. Obviously when you come back, it all comes crashing back and you think, oh, there are the memories, you check the results, you feel kind of rubbish about it, but it definitely helped to remove myself from the situation and go, look, you did your best, look after yourself. And then you kind of just try again. And that's what I did. That winter I kept working hard, and then 2016 ended up being the best season I'd had. Again, I got another PB, I improved, and I made the Olympic team by default because I won trials. So sometimes there isn't a big answer because you've done everything you can, you just have to try again. You have to pick yourself up and try again, and that's what I did for that one. The second failure that I want to talk about is from 2017, when I did make the World Championship team, but I didn't make the final. I had already been having a bad year. I was down significantly on the performances I'd done in 2016. It was a year on and I just wasn't jumping well. I only actually got invited to the championships because of an invite, which isn't the same as being selected. The international governing body can invite you if you're ranked in the top however many they want for that event. And I got invited, and British Athletics accepted my invite. And I just had an absolute mare. I jumped like a donkey and didn't make the final. And this required a bit of a different approach to 2015, because it wasn't as if I was having the most amazing year and my best wasn't good enough. I just wasn't performing at my best. And I knew in me, I knew that I needed to make a big change. And I think sometimes when you fail, you have to trust your gut And inside me, I absolutely knew that things weren't right. So I made a big change. I moved to Florida. I changed my coach, I changed my whole setup. I moved in the hope that that would completely change my performances, because I felt like making a small change, a little tweak here, a little tweak there, wasn't gonna be enough. And I just, you know when you just know? I think you will, in the same way that I did. I knew that it just wasn't right and I needed to change. In the same way that in 2015, I didn't feel like I failed because something was fundamentally wrong in my life, in my setup. I think after a big failure, you need to assess with yourself. You need to say, okay, is there something big in my life that needs to change, or is this just the result of the way things are, in that I've done my best and that wasn't good enough? Because that's how it is sometimes. I don't know. But that time, I absolutely knew I needed to make a massive change. And so that's the way I dealt with that failure, was by taking action. I said, okay, I want to do something about this. I don't want to feel this way again. I'm gonna make a change. And it was big and it was scary, and it continues to be scary. Here I am in Florida, not at home, but it's worked. And that brings me on to my third failure that I want to talk about, and the final one that I want to talk about. And I was hesitant to call this a failure because in a way it was a really good competition, but also I didn't hit my target, so I failed. This is talking about 2018, which was a significantly better year than 2017. I jumped to PB at the trials. I automatically qualified for the European Championships. There was no World Championships last year, but I failed to win a medal. I finished 4th, and my goal was to win a medal. You know, 4th place at European Championships is hardly a big failure, but when at the previous European Champs I came 2nd, when my target for the year was to win a medal, it felt like a failure. And even though it was a good result, it made me so hungry for more. You know, right in the final round, after my last jump, I was in a medal position. And then the woman after me, Marina Beck from Ukraine, came and jumped further and overtook me. She overtook 2 of us actually. And that was it, it was gone. I didn't win a medal. And however I want to feel about that, it's a failure. And it's something that needed addressing. And so I employed 2 techniques. I used one that I learned from Ash Bryant, who was the team captain for the GB team for one meet, and everybody as a team captain gives a speech, and he gave a speech, and one of the things he said was, as a decathlete, you have to deal with failure all the time. If you have a bad event, you have to decide how long you're gonna be annoyed or mad or upset about it, and then you have to move on to the next thing. And so I sort of employed that, and I said, right, okay, this is a big one, so I'm not just gonna make you have an hour, you have a couple days to be upset about this, but then you have to move on and do something else. So I gave myself a few days and then got on with the rest of the season. But when I was reflecting on why I might have failed and why I failed by such a small margin, you know, these women beat me by centimeters. It was tiny. There was nothing between gold and 4th. And it was, you know, it was this. And it really, when I was reflecting on that, it really made me realize that this failure was on me. You know, I wasn't doing enough. And it's only small things. It's small things like I could sleep a little better, I could eat a little better, I could be visualizing my jumps more often, I could be recovering in general a bit better, I could be more responsible about executing my drills and training slightly better. And those are all such tiny things, but when you add them together, they probably equal this, which is what I lost by. And so some failures you just have to take full responsibility for yourself, and I think that's what I did this time. And even though it was a great result and it was a great season compared to the year before, the reason I failed was on me. I had a great coaching setup, I had great training partners, I had a great support system. I didn't quite do enough, and so it made me so hungry to be on the podium next time that I pay so much more attention to those tiny little things now. You know, things that I can now call micro victories when I do them right, because they were micro failures before. I know that last one seems like a bit of a stretch as a failure, but it is one. And even the little failures count, and we have to, and you know, if we want to be elite and we want to be great athletes, I think you have to look at the small things as well as the big things and figure out how you're going to get better. Because there's so many of us that want the same thing. So many like motivational YouTubers talk about how there's enough to go around, and Not everybody wants the same thing, so go after your dreams, but so many people want the exact same thing that I do, which is Olympic gold in the women's long jump. So you have to pay attention to the tiny, tiny, tiny things. You know, those aren't the only kind of failures that there are. I've failed so many more times than that, but those are the 3 that I wanted to focus on for this video. And I wanted to explain what I did and how I found it useful to try and feel better again and to try and be better after that. If you have any questions, you can leave them in the comments below. If there's another kind of video like this that you'd like to see, I can do that. Just let me know. And thank you so much for watching. Thanks for taking the time. I hope you found it useful, and I will see you next time. Bye.